So, true story, a couple months ago, I decided that I wanted to make a new podcast and video series for this year. And I had a podcast a couple years ago called Talk to Jess, which was wonderful conversations with change makers doing incredible things in the world. But this year, I wanted to make something that felt a little bit more connected to my heart about some things that had been going on for me. I wanted to talk about life and death and everything in between. I had had some big losses in my life, not just physical losses of people that I loved, which I did have, but I also had some losses in my identity, in relationships, in just versions of myself, especially as I hit into the middle passage of my life. There were just things that I had a desire and appetite to talk about. And so I wanted to create the space for that, to really talk about what it means to live a life you love. What does it mean to live a good life for you on your terms? That's certainly something I practice and look at in my everyday life. It's probably my biggest struggle right now and my biggest incredible emotional journey. So I wanted to do this podcast and video series on that and talk to amazing people that I knew and people that I didn't know and create a community around building the good life, whatever that means to you. So I have these two little bungalow offices and I turned one completely into a beautiful production studio. I hired amazing filmmakers that I've worked with in the past. My husband, Felipe, soundproofed the room with these gorgeous wooden, handcrafted panels, and we were off to the races. And we shot between January and like the beginning of March about 12 episodes, some of them on the road, some of them in the studio. I loved them. I loved the conversations. They were super unplanned, full of really delicious surprises, but mostly like really made me think and feel. And I was excited to start to put that out into the world. And then, like all good plans that we make for all of us, coronavirus happens, and we're now on this safer at home lockdown globally. And it has obviously shifted our lives in such tremendous ways and created the new abnormal, things that we're getting used to, but are just really disruptive to all of those dreams, right? And all of those plans. That's probably the biggest irony of them all. So I've been thinking a lot because I was going to release this podcast in July. I had my, whole game plan, marketing plan laid out. And I've been thinking a lot about just putting them out there sooner. It's sort of weird because I will tell you that the title of this podcast that I created months ago is called We're All Gonna Die Anyway, which I swear to God is something that if you know me, I say quite often. It's just a way that I kind of acknowledge the impermanence of life. It reminds me to not take some things so seriously. And it does really remind me that we all have the same beginning and the same end. We're all born and we're all going to die. But what we create in the middle of that time, however much time we have, is a life. And a lot of us are wanting to leave a legacy via children, via our work, via our community activism. We're all driven by so many similar things. And I've just, wanted to talk about life and death and everything in between. Like, I wanted to talk about loss. I wanted to talk about gain and urgent living and passionate living and how do we really do this with meaning. So the title is We're All Gonna Die Anyway. And it is actually, ironically, a very joyful podcast about living a good life. And I'm gonna release it pretty soon, I think, because I need to continue to have these conversations. I think the time might be more right, as weird as that sounds. And mostly I've been wrestling with how to be of service during this time because I have felt incredibly unmotivated and lost and up and down and all of the things that we're all feeling right now. And this conversation and these kinds of folks that I've been able to interview, they really give me hope, and we laugh a lot and we cry a little, and I think mostly love more than I've ever experienced with strangers and with even deep and dear friends who I've interviewed. So I have my husband in one of these episodes. He's never given an interview ever before. I don't even think he's really ever spoken publicly, but we talk about toxic masculinity and his upbringing in Mexico and some of the losses he's had in his life. I have really wonderful conversations with people that I think you know, love, and admire, who are going to share in ways that they might not have shared before. And that's really kind of the sacred convo that I was hoping to create. So we shot these as well as recorded them. We're going to release them wherever podcasts are for sure. But it's a giant love letter to urgent living right now. And I want to create more of a community conversation around what it means to live a good life. We're also uniquely poised to be having this conversation because we are deciding what is essential, what is necessary, what do we want to go back to if we go back to anything, what do we want to create anew, what can we discard that no longer serves us, how do we hold on even tighter to the things that do. I don't know, this is just such a great unknown time, and but it is a time to reflect and to look within. And so that's what we're going to do with this experience. And I hope you'll join me, and I hope you'll talk to me about your experiences so that we continue to learn and love one another.